I'm very pleased to be able to introduce Andy Curtis, who's the Head of Digital Economy and Creative Industries at the KTN, who's going to be running this session on creative industries and technology. And I am going to hand over to Andy to take the reins now. Andy.
Thanks, Graham. Hi, everybody. My name's Andy. I work for the KTN. And KTN is an agency that works across the UK. It's 200 staff strong. And we work across a variety of different niches and sectors. And I run a team of 8 that works in digital economy and creative industries. And I'm going to give you an overview of just some of the observations we've seen over the last sort of year, where things are going, and pop some case studies in front of you using some of the people as examples that we work with as clients, the kinds of businesses that are utilizing technology. So given that this is creative industries focused, the case studies that I'll be presenting will have a slant towards that. And so there are many more broader examples that we could extrapolate from, but I've just kind of focused it specifically around creative industries for this. So if you would like conversations about the wider types of work we do, then I'm very happy to engage with you. We also run networks in creative and digital media, such as Immerse UK. We are the lead partner, well, I actually lead that. That's one of our networks. We run AI for services, looking at fintech and insurtech and accounting tech. We run an accelerator in cybersecurity, and we're just about to launch a new network in safety tech, which is about citizens navigating online safely, which you will hear more about over the next 2 weeks as that gets launched. And we work with a variety of different partners like DCMS, Innovate UK, you guys, and lots of public and private sector businesses as well. Okay, so let's move on. There are a series of convergent technology, you could say game changers, but they're actually just natural progressions to keep an eye on, particularly within this space. And you all have known all of these names and descriptors of what these are, but actually defining how they're used and the ingenuity and the entrepreneurship behind how they're used is always surprising to me, which is, it's just fantastic to see companies utilizing new sorts of technologies to do this innovatively, with technology at the core of what they do, to serve clients in a variety of different ways. And AI, you will have heard of lots about what does it do, how does it do it. There are various different ways that it works, but the integration of AI is coming forward in a way which is enabling the development of new tools, platforms, and technologies that enables people to do things quickly and more effectively. Telecoms is ramping up its game. So 5G is probably the biggest news that's coming through. All of the operators are ramping up on that, and we work as a partner in a network called UK 5G, which is all the businesses and end users within the UK's 5G industry. That is big news. There's a DCMS have put it up to 100 million in a selection of test beds, with the most recent call being 5G Create, which was very, very heavily subscribed to in terms of applications. And given the name, there were lots of creative applications and utilization of 5G coming through to prove the case for 5G. Data insecurity. Once you've got your content, it becomes data. Once you're acquiring content from users, it's data. How do you keep those communities secure online? How do you work with those communities, and how do you protect them so that you're not leaking or breaching any GDPR, that kind of thing? Visualization technologies is strengthening. As we've mentioned, everybody knows sort of immersive through Audiences of the Future, and a variety of other big game developments and a variety of other content developments. But actually it has applications in a very broad sense across a broad set of sectors. So as what started off to be a creative technology is actually reaching into other sectors like manufacturing and big data, and being implemented in ways which people never really kind of conceived of when it was first put together. And also the key thing to that is opportunities around business models and new interventions where people can gain value out of immersive and visualization technologies. And also the concept of a single pane of glass that allows you to gain information and transact with your data and gain intelligence and insights and analytics and analysis, so you can be informed around how you make decisions, or your customer can make decisions about whatever they're doing. What I'm describing can be described as IoT, Internet of Things, and a fuller deployment, the next stage of deployment, and the full stack of technologies that goes with that. So we've got sensors, we've got communications between the sensors in whatever way, shape, or form that is, to a data hub or a database, and then communication from that database and that security around that storage, and then communications from that data hub to the one pane of glass, whether it be an iPad, a desktop, a series of platforms that you work to integrate a solution that you need to deploy. So the full stack of technologies around wireless, telecoms, hardware, software becomes something that's more magnified. And we've seen a lot of that development over the last year or so. And this kind of paraphrases what I've been trying to say. What we've not mentioned is the current scenario around COVID, which in some cases, it could arguably be said that digitization and transformation around digital technologies has accelerated by up to 5 to 10 years in some cases. So the cultural adoption and what we're doing right now, I should be stood in front of you in a normal scenario, but I'm not. I'm doing this online. And I've literally just come from another digital business meetup event that we run once a month that is now online. Those kind of processes, because we're now rapidly moving to an online life, will stick around, hopefully, and that's opened up opportunities for businesses to deploy, exploit, commercialize, and gain awareness of what they do because they're online. People are now actively looking for online solutions. Okay, I'm going to dive into a few case studies and just kind of give you and breathe a little bit of life into the things that I've described and how they're being utilized. And hopefully that will open up a few conversations and discussions and questions afterwards. So let's dive in. So one of the companies we've been working with recently is Charisma AI, with the owner's called To Play For. And if I'm looking this way, it's because I'm looking at a really big monitor rather than my little titchy monitor over here. So do forgive me, please. So Charisma is 5 years old. They've developed a platform which can be used in a number of different ways, and it's either desktop, it's on an app, and they work in the games, TV, and film industry. And they've also diversified into theatre, working with people like Netflix, BBC. They're also active members of a convergent space because of what they do in AI. And the AI aids story development in real time, in context with memory for things like script development, or you can change the narrative of a particular show by making a particular choice. So they've done a whole bunch of work on creating a toolkit that allows people to play with narrative content and actually use it in a way whereby they're gaining monetizable mechanisms from TV and film to explore new opportunities in narrative play and consumption and content distribution. So the interesting thing about it is it actually has emotion behind it. When you think about an AI, it's pretty kind of standard and it's pretty binary, forgive the pun. But there is emotion behind it. There's memory behind it. It remembers the context of what things are said and it knows the context. It also has a variety of voices like most things do. And it also uses natural language. And they've spent a long time building this. And you can create unlimited characters, and it has real-time analytics behind it, which allow you to analyze the use, the adoption. So if you're halfway through something, people make a choice to go this way, or people make a choice to go this way. You can look at probabilities, predictions, and create new scenarios as a result of that. So one of the things they did recently, and we can send this deck to you afterwards, so you can click on the links and check all of these people out, these companies out. But this example, 2 weeks ago, they went on YouTube and they delivered with Creation Theatre a virtual theme park around Alice in Wonderland, which allowed you to play with the narrative and make choices, but using the AI to do that. These guys have come to the attention, as I mentioned, of Netflix and the BBC and a variety of others, and they're now working up a variety of opportunities and options, which they never had 3 or 4 years ago because the technology wasn't there. And so because of consumption around digitization increasing and platforms diversifying into unlinear, non-linear content, they've got opportunities in their space. Just going to take a clip. So I just want to talk about Scenic. So Scenic, in any other way, shape or form, would be classed as Zoomer-like. They have developed a platform which is based around video webinar conferencing. And what they've started to do is diversify that. So the major push that they started was around getting their mates to watch footy on telly with them, as you can see in the screenshot here, whereby you can actually have a social experience. So picture in picture with your mates, you could actually comment, cheer, jeer, and do whatever you wanted, but sharing the experience when you're in different countries. And the examples that they use as part of their sale pitch is actually, you know, people from around the world supporting Manchester United because they're a global team and actually sharing the experience with friends and colleagues online. But what that did is it kind of limited what they did, and they went into a relationship with BT to do that, which has been successful. But they've actually been revving up for 5G, so you can do it on a handheld device, and it's delivered as a software as a service program. But what they've done is also a 90-degree turn into e-games, because of the community around e-games is much more used to this with a variety of different platforms playing. They've got a really great foothold in driving that forward. They again also sit in a number of different UK business networks to make sure that convergence is coming together for them. And they are a rapidly growing company, lots of investment, and they're also getting interest from other organizations since COVID as well, because they have a platform they can play in. They've got a number of different other vertical niches they can do, everything from justice to legal, all the way through to media content distribution, and, you know, getting multiple people in one place in an encrypted online environment. Nobody can bomb you, nobody can come in, and it works excuse me, for you. It's browser based and it's app based, so they're really shooting for it at the moment, excuse me. So a company that's, so the other thing to say is that Scenic are pretty well established because of what they do, because of the media that they have and the capability they have. They've grown rapidly. They're very much a high growth company. On the other sort of side of things, RPP TV have been around for 16 years, but are still growing gently. Very, very small company, capitalizing in a variety of opportunities that have morphed over that period of time. And the latest one that they're looking at is developing a minimum viable product around intelligent sound effects creation on the fly. So from anybody in the TV industry, there used to be and film industry, there used to be, and games industry, there used to be entire companies in the 90s that did physical, what they call Foley, which is somebody actually stepping on a gravel pit and then recording it with a microphone. As we've come through digitization over the last couple of decades, that's changed. We've got lots of sample libraries that do that, lots of generics, but now there's a move to actually automate the process on the fly. Processing has got far enough along the line. AI is intelligent enough to actually reasonably place sound effects in places whereby they can generate meaningful things. So that's been amplified with, I don't know whether anybody's into athletics or seen any of the footy where you've had audiences where you've had canned laughter come through or canned clapping come through. Some of that's blooming awful, it has to be said. So using a system like this with a bit of maturity adds a bit of value. So at the moment, somewhere in BBC, we've still got somebody pressing a button when somebody does a great jump in the long jump, and they celebrate. With this, you've got some of the basics covered, and it actually does stuff on the fly for you. So that covers games, TV, film, and any other kind of medium you need, rapidly generated, intelligent stuff happening. And if you think about this as a media creator, it means you've got one less job to do. You can throw it up on your, your digital platform for editing, whether it be Avid or Final Cut Pro or whatever. This becomes a module you can throw in. So they're developing a whole bunch of Atmos stuff, footsteps, and a variety of stuff. So atmosphere is like stuff in the background, car going past when you actually see it go past, and it's contextually specific. So they're doing a lot of machine vision around this as well. Really interesting stuff. So they are also diversifying and looking at how they can operate in connecting to healthcare and industrial applications of this. They're really kind of looking at diversity from the start, which is really interesting for a company so small. And they work very, very closely with a lot of universities and a lot of public sector agencies to actually do this stuff. So they don't work in isolation. They're very, very experienced at working with academics to help inform the way that R&D can potentially be commercialized. So you can actually look at this company as a bit of an R&D commercialization machine that does it quietly, gently, and effectively. And they've won recently, I mean, a lot of these companies have won Innovate UK funding in the past and have gone on to build on that in a number of different ways. So a company based in Manchester who are 17 years old, they are a traditional agency that you would class with graphic design, content production, corporate videos, branding, that kind of thing. But over the years have diversified into a variety of subsets. We started working with them about 3 years ago. And they've always been into gamification since the concept came around about 10, 15 years ago. And they've also been into platform development from its earlier stages. What they've recently taken on is the kind of augmented reality AI journey. And this came out of the case study that's on screen now, where the chief exec and his wife, their daughter was diagnosed with cancer. And they found that the experience of going to the hospital is deeply traumatic for everybody involved, but particularly a child. And so Corporation Pop decided to actually look at how they could change that user-centered journey, how it could be made easier, how it could be gamified to explain some of the complicated processes in a way that is just so not deeply scary. And what they've developed in conjunction with the NHS in their local area, and they won £300,000 to do this, was to develop the early stages of what Exploro has become. And this really is around the user experience, really actually taking a user-centered design approach using immersive technology connected with AI, which is decision-making based, and then working to create a solution that actually helps the patient go through the experience that they're going to go through in a number of different ways. They've started to roll it out across other areas of the NHS, and it's because of that personal insight, because of that personal engagement with that process and engagement with the consultants in the medical industry, they were able to develop something that has been extremely useful. So that's kind of VR and AI coming together to provide the solution. and there's more to come. So another way of looking at immersive technology is looking and applying it to big data. And big data is such a scary thing. When you accumulate data, there are several big questions like, how big is big data? What are we going to do with our big data? How do we analyze it and make meaningful decisions based on what that data is doing? There's a company called Santa Theory who have a product called Alera in Sheffield. They're a 4-year-old company, and they're on the Createch One to Watch, actually alongside To Play For this year, about how they have applied sort of creative industries technology to big world global solutions and problems. And essentially, the easy way to describe this is it allows you to see data in its different forms in different ways using a visualization technique. It's a tool that people can use to identify markers, subject areas, and it allows them to see what that looks like in a 3D environment. So you're walking through it, you're zooming in and out of it at such a granular level, to a helicopter view. It's been an interesting deployment. They are developing, they're working with a variety of different companies that become big consumers of big data. And how they've deployed that from a small company is really interesting. They're still using big visors, but you can do it on a monitor as well. But there are a number of different companies that are looking at them because of the power of this and because of the emergent nature of it and because of the mobility of it, which is not something that strikes you. As hardware gets more acceptable for immersive technology. So if Apple come up with the glasses that we're all hoping they do in the next couple of years, or somebody like them, this kind of application is going to allow people to have a look through that single pane of glass and make some major decisions, and also sharing it, because the toolkit they have also shares across many teams to actually explore that data. As you can see on the screen here, there's a no coding thing, so you can integrate it straight in as a platform. So it's a straight in to your organization solution based on what you want to do. And it's because of the speed of the internet, because of speed of communications, it's real time. We're communicating across real time pretty much in the UK. I'm assuming everybody's in the UK here. But it allows you to visualize a number of different things in different ways with different people in different places. So a very powerful tool coming through. One to watch. Blocker Music. Blockchain. So these guys are tackling one of the universal paradigms of the last 70 years in music rights management. So the Performing Rights Society, the MCPS, are in the UK, and they collect royalties every time there's an airplay of your tune on the radio or on Spotify, or you make a sale if it's mechanical copyright. So these guys have really kind of belted and braced the whole solution around that. Actually managing and seeing what you're earning as a musician or a publisher is a dark art, and it has been for a long time. And Performing Rights Society, and I'm a member of the Performing Rights Society, and I get a little piece of paper every 3 months saying here's a royalty for whatever you did 30 years ago, that kind of thing. But when you're a big publisher or a big artist, you need safe knowledge around what's going on. But how do you also protect that and benchmark that data so it's not fraudulently exploited? And these guys have developed a global music publishing tool. So the other thing about the Performing Rights Society, the MCPS, is it's a local territorial UK-based entity. And there are many of those, and traditionally in history, over the last 100 years, there have been loads of those around the whole of the world, particularly in the US and Asia. So what you've got here is a single platform that covers the whole of the globe, instantly connecting a variety of different analytics and aspects to what they publishers of content and music can now exploit and see exactly where they are. So the other thing is the convergence of visual content and music content in a variety of different ways. And those rights management systems have been pretty dysfunctional, and putting block secure, it's easier to use. It gives you confidence that you're not actually going to get screwed around a whole bunch of things. So you can see that Massive Attack had jumped on this. And years ago, U2 opted out of the PRS, the Performing Rights Society mechanism, because they were unhappy with the royalty that PRS was taking for collecting their royalties. There's a kind of cash fee that everybody pays when you're a member of the PRS. With this, there will be a cash fee, but it will be slightly different, and you'll be paying a license for the platform. And you get to manage your rights, and you can see exactly at any one point where your rights are being utilized or exploited, or opportunities where you can actually bid into a variety of different opportunities. So an interesting application coming through. And right at the other end of the spectrum, a one-year-old company that's developed an app-based streaming platform that covers Instagram, Facebook, and a variety of others. And they won 50 grand in the short COVID competition that Innovate UK launched recently and awarded recently. And they're scaling what they do for 5G because it makes a big difference to what they do. And this is about artists who are not signed, so AWOL, artists without a label, who are performing live, reaching out into potential audiences because they can't play anywhere because of the COVID lockdown. And this app has really gained ground with a number of different organizations, namely AWOL, but a number of different organizations who are looking at them for pre-signed bands. This has created so much attention that people like One Little Indian have been looking at them, who's an independent record label of note. So Bjork was on there, I think she still is. Whereby artists can actually utilize the platform to reach an audience they would not do during a lockdown scenario. So that is now expanding. Now we're being released. Communities of music supporters who support acts and see acts can do so while integrating this. And it's a tool for the artist, not necessarily a consumption tool for the end user. That is just, you know, a quick app on Instagram, or you can do it through Instagram or Facebook, so it works through those platforms. But it's actually a tool designed for the performing artist to integrate it into their digital audio workstation, their DAW. So it comes in whereby they just integrate the streaming. They can do a live mix of the sound if they're a band or they're DJing or whatever, and they can do that live really, really quickly and effectively and cost effectively. These people don't have lots of money, and so it's about scale. So these guys are building an application that will go global with any luck. And just lastly, I wanted to talk, we've talked about a number of different specific companies, but I wanted to talk about a little bit of immersive, again, that really kind of caught my imagination. I'm a big fan of sci-fi, and I've been watching The Mandalorian on Disney. And part of the production process, and I saw a YouTube clip about the production process of how they've been filming this. I used to work for Nickelodeon TV, which is a kids' TV channel, in the coolest time when London was the coolest place on the planet to be in the mid-90s. And I ran the world's first virtual studio, which was the size of a small dining room, and it was painted green. It had one camera in it, and it had a computer in the corner that was the size of a TARDIS. It was enormous, and it made a lot of noise. I'm sure that's the same now, but it was a really, really small room. And what they're doing with The Mandalorian, so that shape you can see at the top is actually the roof of the studio. It's not like a spaceship or anything like this. And the gaps you see in the screen at the back are actually an LED wall. And what they've done is just thrown a bunch of dirt on the ground to actually make that look like a seamless set. And as they move the camera, it's all contextual. So the perspective of the screen at the back actually changes with the movement of the perspective of the camera. So as it zooms in or moves around or moves to the left and right, you can see that. So go and have a look at it. It's a really interesting technology, and it's contextual in the fact that it's real time. The actors are in an environment which they feel they're in, short of the green screen at the back of this particular shot. They're actually feeling and react and can act in real time, therefore giving more persuasive performance as a result of that. Yeah. And you can see the crew on this one. You've obviously got something which they're walking out of there, which has to be green screened in afterwards. But an interesting use of LED and an interesting use of lighting technology and an interesting use of display technology. When at a time with immersive technologies, projection is not right where it needs to be in terms of holography and holographic imagery. The size of immersive visors is cumbersome. So display technologies like this, which are curved and not necessarily flat, become an interesting proposition for a number of different industries. So to summarize, what we're seeing is innovation in workflows and tools that improve productivity and essentially energizing content creation, distribution, IP management, and monetization models. That's continuous, but I think we're actually seeing an acceleration. And I think we've seen, certainly in a number of cases around the COVID, where R&D has increased, the capacity to reach a market has grown and accelerated quicker than it would have done normally due to digital adoption. And we're also seeing tools come out that enable a lowering the barrier of adoption. So stuff in your pocket you already have on your device, it's just a case of downloading something. The key thing that's going to happen with 5G, and a number of things that I've not spoken about, is things like electronic news gathering will be able to be done quickly. You won't need a satellite truck that you need to book, pay for as a broadcaster. And you'll see freelance news people walking around with smaller cameras that are connected to 5G, shipping live image across the planet using rapid, fast 5G technologies. And the thing about 5G, I don't know whether you know, the 5G is very, 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 very fast, moving up and down of data from wherever you do. Very, very low latency, because sometimes there's a delay. The latency is the delay in activity before it does it. It's really, really exacting and very, very rapid. So I hope that's been useful. It's a bit of a 101, a whistle stop, and I do apologize if I've covered things you already know about, and hopefully it was stimulating. But these are the kinds of businesses we're working with right now. Thanks. And can I hand back to Graham?